Hello and welcome everyone to our session about how to innovate with API management and graph on SAP Integration Suite. I'm Jannis from the product management and joined today by Christian, who is leading the graph development team.
Welcome everyone.
All right, before we start with the session, one thing to notice is that if you have any questions, please put them into the chat. We have a lot of experts in the background who will answer them. And we also will have some time later to answer some questions live in the Q&A part at the end. All right, so for me, it's actually my first TechEd, but Christian, you have some more experience, and you also have been to Las Vegas, and you brought something with us today. Can you give us some more details about it?
Exactly, so that's what we said. I mean, my first TechEd was in Las Vegas, and I bought there a deck of cards, some card game here. You can see it here. It's also quite fancy because they cut all these edges, and this is because they have been played in a casino originally, and you can buy them everywhere, basically. And I promise we won't gamble today, right? There's also no card trick I'm doing. I can't do that, but we will come to that point later. So check this out.
Yeah, and one question to our viewers in the meantime is, what do you think has this card deck to do with our new release graph capability? So looking forward for your answers, and we will give you the correct one later in the session, so stay tuned that you don't miss it. All right, so as we mentioned, there is a new capability available on SAP Integration Suite. It's called Graph, and that's also the reason why Christian is here today. Can you give us some more insights into it, what challenge it solves then also, and how you can use it in combination with API management? Over to you.
Definitely, that's a good idea. And actually, the idea is good to start with a problem first, right? And see what kind of problems we are addressing and what you can solve with Graph later on. And it's a very classic situation. Probably you have in your enterprise, in your company, you have a bunch of business systems, right? You have SAP systems, you have non-SAP systems, you have your custom systems, you even have the same systems of a kind, right? Multiple times, multiple S4 systems, for example, right? So this is what you have, this is what we deal with. And on the other hand, I mean, these business systems are all exposing APIs, right? And these APIs are super important because you want to consume them in your applications you want to develop. Probably applications you want to develop to distinguish from your competitor, right? To be innovative. I mean, all kinds of things you want to do, dashboards, all kinds of technologies you want to use with your apps. And now the problem is exactly like that. So as a developer, I'm super puzzled now. So what is the right API to call? Where do I get my business entity from, right? And even if I find the business entity, where do I get the right next one, right? Where can I jump to another business entity? How they are related? It's all not clear, right? I need to find this out it's very cumbersome to find that out. Also, different protocols I have to deal with, different security standards probably, right? And all these things I need to code into my applications. I need to know what I need to do here. And yeah, that's obviously quite bad situation, right? And again, if you're thinking about multiple apps you want to develop, the problem is that you are duplicating your code and this knowledge all over the place in multiple of your apps, right? So at the end, you end up in some sort of spaghetti integration where you have point-to-point integrations and even logic on the client side, which should not be there, right? Because then you're also super inflexible if you change something in your underlying enterprise landscape. So the question is now, what we can do, right? What we can do to solve this problem. And the first go-to solution, the first answer is, let's go and put an API management in between, right? Because with API management, I can already solve a lot of these problems I described, right? So first of all, I can describe my API surface, my APIs to my developers, to the developers, what they can consume. In an API catalog, in a service catalog, the tool for that at SAP is the API Business Hub Enterprise, where you can curate and actually act as a developer portal for your developers, right? You also have gateway functionalities. You can put the same security mechanism in place for all of your APIs. You can harmonize URLs even. You can expose them all with the same endpoint, right? This is what you can do. Some governance of APIs. You can find them. You can manage them. You can get insights on how the APIs are utilized, how they are used. So a lot of functionality you can get when you put these API management in between your apps and your APIs and your landscape. And there is one very important and one very powerful mechanism, and this is these transforms, which means not necessarily you need to expose the APIs in the same protocol, in the same fashion as they are exposed in your business system. And that's actually exactly the point where we think about, okay, what else we can do. And using these transforms, we can say, hey, why not lay out all these business entities of the underlying system, of the underlying APIs in a coherent graph where they are semantically connected, right? I can jump from one entity to another. I know exactly how they are related. I don't need to find foreign key relationships and resolve them on my own, right? Why not do it in this way, right? And that's exactly what graph is, right? It allows you to create these business data graphs on your own, curated, tailored as you want it, and expose them to your developers, to your apps, and actually use them. Not only design time, but also runtime. And that's exactly where we look again at our cards. So if you think about these cards here, let's say all these cards are representing domain entities in your enterprise or are APIs in your landscape. And if you now think about in a card game, what makes you a winner? It makes you a winner if you have the right cards in the right combination, in the right order probably, at the right time, right? This makes you a winner. And if you think about what makes a good app and what makes your app development easy in your landscape, it's like having the right business entities, also with the right combination in the right order, what we actually need, right? But now the difference between graph and actually a card game is that in graph, we are not relying on any randomness or so, right? We don't need to gamble, right? We can actually curate and handcrafted our BDGs. That's an unfair advantage we have at graph, and it's an unfair advantage you should take advantage from. So if I now basically just select my cards, and if you think about a poker game, right, I can give me the royal flush just right away without actually shuffling or gambling the cards. All right. So now you may ask, why a graph, right? I mean, why we are exposing these business entities in a graph and not using any other patterns which are out there for API utilization? And the reason is, maybe we go one step back and say, what is a graph? A graph is quite simple structure. I mean, we have nodes and we have edges, right? In our speak, a node is a business entity, and edges are associations to another business entity. And the association gives some sort of semantic into my graph so that I can navigate and jump, so to say, from one business entity to another business entity. And that's actually where we can gain a lot of easiness in our clients, right? So what we can do is now we can formulate really rich queries which are able to collect data with one shot, so to say, because we know exactly how things are related, right? And the next thing is also, in this graph, there's no notion of systems any longer, right? I mean, it's no notion of my underlying landscape. It's completely abstracted. I operate on business entities, and if things are coming from S4, if things are coming from a C4C system, for a developer, they don't care, right? It's not actually important at this point. And the good thing is, I mean, it sounds like a complex structure and it sounds like a lot of work to set up and to do, but actually it's that easy to set up your own business data graph. And let's have a look at the anatomy of a business data graph and how you can create it and what kind of functionality and powerful functionality you can actually include in that. And at the end, it all starts with connectivity, right? So you have to have data sources, and you have to connect to your data sources. So in this sense, all business entities, all APIs exposed are data sources, and I need to connect. To connect, I can use the full capabilities of BTP to connect. I mean, I have destinations, I have cloud connectors to connect my on-premise systems, right? I have a unified landscape with formations where I can also set up these connectivity. And this is what we need to do. That's our homework, right? I mean, that's the thing we need to set up. And once set up, I can connect that to a business data graph out of that. So what Graph is doing now, it's analyzing your APIs, it's analyzing your business systems, and it's extracting the business entities which are exposed by a certain API, and include them one-on-one into the business data graph as so-called mirrored entities. And as the name suggested, a mirrored entity is actually one-on-one the same business entity. You have all the attributes of the business entity. You're not losing any data at this moment. And it's also showing that we are embracing data federation. We are embracing API federation here, right? So we are not transforming them. We just give it to you as they are in the business system. Set fields, all the things, all the customization you did will be present there. In addition, what we can do now is we can also draw edges. We can put associations into our business entities which have not been there before. Just because we analyzed the data before, we analyzed even deeper the data, even going down to databases, and know there are associations, there are foreign key relationships which we can represent in associations to easily navigate from one to the other. And that's what we need to do, right? You need to create it, connect it, and you have your first business data graph with all your mirrored entities of your business system. But now there comes a real powerful mechanism on top, or actually you can include that in your BDG, and this is you can define your own custom entities. Which means you can define entities which are representing your domain, which are speaking your language, which are there to really match how you think in your company, right? And these custom entities are able to get data, to ease data from a mirrored entity. You can combine data. Really to make it easy, simple renamings. And the mechanism to include these custom entities are custom extensions or custom model extensions. This is how you can include that. And finally, you have to say how you want to expose it. So in this case, we are exposing that as two different variants of interfaces. We have a GraphQL interface and we have an OData v4 interface. Both are capable of dealing with graph-like structures, right? I mean, this is the reason why they are there. But we also provide open API spec if you want to consume these APIs in a pure REST fashion, right? I mean, and of course, you can leverage the full power of API management to put additional policies on top where you want to filter, exclude certain things, security policies you want to put on top. On the other end, you can also clearly define as an administrator where these business entities are served from. So thinking about the case, we have multiple S4 systems. I can define rules where certain things are coming from, right? Or even if there is replicated data or sharded data in your landscape, right? You can define where things are actually coming from. And this is how you completely abstract this fact from your developers, and they only operate on a clear graph. So I would say let's do an example, right? I mean, it's always good to have examples. Theory is fine, but I think it's more clear if we go to a concrete example, which I can also show you later on in a real system. So let's say the following example. I want to enrich my business partner. So what I have is I have a classic S4 business partner entity coming from an S4 system with all the properties, with all the attributes offered by it. On the other hand, I have an extension. I want to store additional ratings, credit ratings for my customers. And I store that in a CAP-based application. I deploy on BTP, in a Kima cluster, or on Cloud Foundry, whatever I like, actually. And this is where I store it. So here applies keep the core clean, right? I'm not intermixing the data, two different buckets to get there. What I now need to do as a customer is I need to know, hey, there is a string here and there is a string there, and there might be related with a custom with some foreign key relationships. So what I need to do is I need to query my business partner first, extract this ID, go over to the other interface, and to iterate over that and load additional information and mesh this again together in my client application. Right? This is what I need to do. But with Graph, there's an easier, powerful mechanism, and this is these custom entities, what I can define. So in this particular case, I can make out of the business partner and the ratings a rated partner. And this is a composition of parts of the business partner, which I take over. And I even not taking that over as it is. I can also rename certain attributes to make it nicer, to match my knowledge, to match my domain speak, so to say. The same thing I'm doing for my ratings. I include these entities from my ratings object also in this rated partner. Again, same mechanism. I can rename. I can do a lot of things to make it nicer. And with the goal of letting my developers work on my specific rated partner entity. To to be complete, I mean, we are a graph, right? I mean, can also, of course, create associations to other business entities, like whatever I have in my system, other custom entities or other mirrored entities I might have in my business data graph. So this is really a minimum data graph. A data graph itself can be way bigger, right? You can include your entire domain, your business entities into one coherent graph. But of course, for the sake of easiness, we just reduced ourselves to this small example here.
All right. Thanks for the great presentation, Christian. But can we also have a look at the live demo?
Sure. I see you. You're quite eager to see it in the system, right? You want to see real systems, and we can definitely do that. So let's switch over to a browser I have opened. Let me quickly refresh the page, just in case my session timed out in this case. So what you see here is actually an Integration Suite tenant, right? I created this upfront, prepared this upfront. You probably are familiar with, and as you know, I mean, we are part of the Integration Suite, right? Part of API management. So and we are 100% embedded in all these toolings, right? So if you look at the home screen, there's a way to enable capabilities, and this is also how you enable the graph capability. And once you did it, you see a new menu item in your Design tab in Integration Suite. And this is obviously called Graph, right? Quite straightforward here. So if you open this one, you will see an overview of all your business data graphs you already created within your system. In my case here, I created 3 business data graphs of different granularity. You see one, for example, in our fictional best run company, a big one with a lot of entities in it, and there are specific ones for a certain domain like finance, or there's a loyalty BDG. They have an endpoint, a URL, you can call it. That's quite clear. And they also have an extension. And as you remember, extensions are the way to get your custom entities in it. So I would say let's look at these extensions, right, and see what you can do here. So you see in parallel to business data graphs, you see your model extensions, and you also see our rated partner. What we actually saw in the example. And this is also visual here. So for a designer of these business, of this entity, I can navigate there. There's only one entity in my entire extension. I can open that and basically see my different attributes of my rated partner. And when I select individual attributes, I can see that, for example, this one is coming from a business partner of S4, while a particular rating, for example, is coming from my ratings entity, my custom entity I created. And this is how I can compose it. So if I now want to add a new attribute, for example, we can switch to the edit mode of this view. And this allows me, let me just open a bit more things here. And this allows me to, for example, add a new attribute from source. And when I do that, I already included a lot of attributes from my ratings entity. And let's say I include the last one called the average. I don't like the name, so let's rename that to something like total score, matching more my language. So I can add that, and then I can include it in my business entity for later usage. I can apply the extension then to a business data graph, and then I can use it. And let's go through all these savings here. But this was the editor view. This was the admin view, right? How I can curate, how I can create business data graphs. For developers, they also need some sort of view, how they can explore and see how the data graph looks like, what are my entities, how things are related. I mean, we're talking about semantic connections, right? And therefore, there's a tool, and this is basically an extension of the Business Hub Enterprise. You remember Business Hub Enterprise is the way for a developer portal, so to say, I can give to developers. And there's also a Graph Navigator extension to explore these business data graphs. You see here, again, my 3 business data graphs I created. You see the best one was a big one, right? Here I included the entire C4C system. There was also S4 is only the business partner, as again C4C. You see a lot of entities, right, which are coming actually into that by just creating these business data graphs, and this is how I can explore also the attributes. Staying in our example, what we want to do is we want to look at the rated partner, and this is what we see here. This is the rated partner entity as I designed it, and now exposed as a as an entity in this nice navigator tool. I can even try it out, because reading documentation is one thing, but when I can try it out, it's always nicer. Interesting to say here, it's not just fake data at the end, it's real data. I mean, it's using the connections I set up when I created my business data graph. So not only design time, real runtime, and I can get the data out from there and can try it out with this start functionality. I mean, we can try some easy things to get even more data. All right, so that's all for the demo side. I would say we give our audience a bit the chance to ask some questions. So let's jump over to the Q&A session.
Live Q&A.
Yeah, I can see some questions raised in the chat. One question is, how do I implement a need-to-know principle in Graph if everything is connected and visible to everyone?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, as I said, I mean, we are combining different capabilities, right? You have API management on top of Graph, right? You can curate your Graph. You can even set up BDGs separate for a different use case. I mean, this is one mechanism. Or you can apply additional policies on top of your API management to get certain things filtered out, for example, right? I mean, these are mechanisms, and you need to see what fits best to your use case, to your environment, to make these things visible and not visible for certain customers.
Yeah. Let's have another one. It looks like similar to CDS view, means Graph is more like a cross-system view on my business entities to merge entities from different systems platform. Am I correct? I would say yes, right? So
yes,
it's definitely the case. So
yeah, let me just give you some insights on Graph, right? I mean, this is quite interesting, because at the end we are also based on CAP, right? I mean, you probably know the CAP programming model from SAP. This is also what we use. This is also heavily based on CDS, and if you will, I mean, it's like some higher level CDS actually what you have, but exposed as nicely consumable APIs, right? That's what we do.
All right, yeah, thanks. Then guess time for some more questions. If I want to introduce Graph technology in my enterprise, how do I introduce it? Example, on top of my existing API management, or altogether as a new Graph model needs to be designed?
Yeah, I mean, again, it really depends, right? There's not a simple answer. I mean, as I said, the granularity of a business data graph might vary, right? You can have smaller ones quite tied to your use case. For a certain type of clients, for example, you can expose it, or you can have this ambition to create a big business data graph, right, for your entire enterprise, to explore the data, as we saw on the tool, right? I can even use it to explore my data, to find out things how things are related, where data is coming from. It really depends on what is the use case of in a particular enterprise. And I would even say, really start small, think big, right? I mean, it's always like that. So start with a small business data graph with a certain use case, like we had it in our example. Do your clients actually communicate with this one, and then extend it by consuming more entities and more use cases with that? I mean, that's usually best.
Yeah, and you also can then put API management on top, right? If certain policies need to be applied.
Right, sure. I mean, there's no, I think. All right, so I think that's it. So thank you very much for listening, and enjoy the rest of the show.
All right, thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.